The violet moons of Calera cast long shadows across the crystalline spires of the royal city. Naira pressed her hand against the cold window of her chambers, watching as the evacuation ships lifted into the darkening sky. Her silver eyes reflected the trails of plasma engines as they pierced through the atmosphere, carrying her people to their new home among the stars. She should have been among them. As the youngest princess of the Kelleran royal family, her place was with her people. But the Council of Elders had deemed otherwise. The genetic mutation that gave her extraordinary empathic abilities, once celebrated as a gift, was now seen as a threat to the purity of their species. "Your Highness," a soft voice called from behind her. "The last transport leaves in 1 hour." Naira turned to face her only remaining attendant, Ven, whose scaled skin shimmered with worry. "They're not waiting for me, Ven. The decision is final. But surely the Queen, your mother, has accepted the Council's judgment," Naira finished, her voice steady despite the pain that tightened her chest. "They believe my condition will weaken our people's bloodline in the new colony. Better to leave one behind than risk the future of our entire species." The real cruelty wasn't in the abandonment, it was in the pretense of choice they had given her. Stay behind in the royal palace with enough supplies to last a year, or face exile in the wastelands. A princess's execution dressed up as mercy. Outside, the perpetual storms that had ravaged their world for the past decade intensified. The planet's magnetic field was collapsing, making the surface increasingly uninhabitable. Soon, the automated systems that maintained the city's protective shields would fail. After that, it would only be a matter of time before the deadly radiation reached even the deepest chambers of the palace. Naira moved to her workstation, where dozens of holographic displays showed the deteriorating conditions across the planet. She had spent years studying the atmospheric changes, trying to find a solution. Her empathic abilities had allowed her to sense the planet's suffering in ways her people's instruments couldn't detect. But the Council had dismissed her theories as the desperate ramblings of a defective mind. "Ven, you should go. The transport won't wait." Her attendant straightened, mandibles clicking in distress. "My place is with you, Your Highness." "No," Naira said firmly. "I won't have another life wasted here. You have family waiting for you. Go to them." Tears slid down Ven's scaled cheeks as she bowed deeply. "It has been my highest honor to serve you, Princess Naira. May the ancient stars guide your path." After Ven's departure, Naira methodically began her preparations for survival. The palace's automated systems would maintain basic functions for several months, but she needed to establish secondary protocols. She refused to simply lie down and die, even if that's what the Council expected. In her private laboratory, Naira activated her research terminals. If she was going to be trapped here, she would use the time to continue her studies. Perhaps she could still find a way to save her dying world, even if her people were no longer here to benefit from it. Hours passed as she worked, the storm outside growing stronger. The palace's shield generators hummed louder, straining against the onslaught. Naira was so absorbed in her calculations that she almost missed the first tremor. But the second one shook the entire chamber, sending equipment crashing to the floor. Warning signals flashed across her screens. The planet's magnetic field was fluctuating wildly, creating gravitational distortions unlike anything in their recorded history. Naira rushed to the observation dome, her heart pounding. The sky had turned an impossible shade of crimson, shot through with bolts of green lightning. As she watched in horror, massive chunks of the planet's crust began to tear away, drawn upward by the magnetic anomaly. The protective shield around the palace flickered and failed. Toxic wind howled through the corridors, carrying with it the scent of destruction. Naira ran through the twisting hallways of her ancestral home, down into the ancient catacombs that predated even the Kelleran civilization. Her people had built their cities on top of ruins left by some long-vanished species, and it was these deeper chambers that might offer her only hope of survival. The ground continued to shake as she sealed herself inside a reinforced chamber deep beneath the palace. Around her, crystalline pillars pulsed with a faint blue light, evidence of technology far more advanced than anything her people had achieved. She had discovered this room years ago but had never managed to decipher its purpose. As the world above her tore itself apart, Naira placed her hand against one of the pillars and closed her eyes. Her empathic abilities reached out, searching for any remnant of the ancient minds that had built this place. Instead, she found something else, a resonance, a pattern in the chaos above that felt deliberate, almost artificial. The realization hit her with stunning clarity. The planet's destruction wasn't a natural phenomenon. Something or someone was causing it. But why? And more importantly, could it be stopped? As debris rained from the sky and the last vestiges of her civilization crumbled, Princess Naira of Calera made a vow. She would survive. She would uncover the truth. And somehow, she would find a way to make things right. Dr. Thomas Walker stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. The quantum fluctuations his research vessel had been tracking through deep space had led them to an impossible discovery, a planet in the midst of magnetic dissolution. This can't be natural, he muttered, adjusting his instruments. Zara, are you seeing these energy patterns? His chief engineer, Zara Patel, leaned over the console, her dark eyes narrowing. Nothing about this makes sense, Doc. These readings suggest the planet's magnetic field is being systematically dismantled. I've never seen anything like it. The research vessel Asteria hung in high orbit around the dying world, its crew of 12 watching in fascination as green lightning danced across the planet's surface. They had been tracking unusual quantum signatures across this sector for months, following a theory that suggested advanced civilizations might be using quantum tunneling for faster-than-light communication. Dr. Walker, called Marcus Riley from the navigation station, I'm picking up some unusual structures on the surface. Looks like the remains of a city, but the architecture, it's not like anything in our database. Thomas moved to examine the scans. Through gaps in the storms, he could make out crystalline spires and domed buildings that seemed to glow from within. An abandoned civilization? Right when we're tracking possible signs of advanced quantum technology. Not exactly abandoned, Zara interjected. I'm getting power readings from some of the structures. Faint, but definitely active. Before Thomas could respond, the ship's warning systems blared to life. Red emergency lights pulsed through the bridge as the vessel shuddered violently. Gravitational shear. Marcus shouted. The planet's magnetic field just spiked. All hands, brace for impact. Thomas grabbed onto his console as the Asteria was caught in the invisible tide. Equipment sparked and crashed around them as the ship's stabilizers fought against forces they were never designed to handle. Zara's fingers flew across her engineering station. Main power failing. The gravitational forces are tearing the engines apart. Can we break free? Thomas demanded. Negative. We're being pulled into a descent trajectory. Impact with the surface in 12 minutes. Thomas made a split-second decision. Emergency landing protocols. Marcus, find us the safest route down. Zara, divert all remaining power to the landing thrusters and shield generators. Everyone else, secure crash positions. The next 11 minutes were a blur of desperate calculations and emergency measures as the Asteria plummeted through the toxic atmosphere. Warning lights flashed, metal screamed, and the ship's AI calmly counted down their remaining altitude. They hit the ground hard. The impact threw Thomas against his restraints, pain exploding across his chest. Emergency foam deployed throughout the cabin, cushioning the worst of the crash. When the dust settled, the bridge was eerily quiet except for the hiss of ruptured conduits and the groan of stressed metal. Sound off, Thomas called, coughing through the acrid smoke. Everyone alive? One by one, his crew responded. Miraculously, there were no serious injuries, though the same couldn't be said for the Asteria. The ship's once sleek frame was crumpled and broken, half buried in the crystalline soil of this alien world. "Zara, what's our status?" His engineer was already checking systems. "Main power's dead. Life support running on auxiliaries. Hull integrity at 60%, but..." She paused, looking up with worry. The radiation shielding was damaged in the crash. "We've got maybe 48 hours before the atmospheric radiation reaches lethal levels." Thomas nodded grimly. "Marcus, what about communications?" "Long-range array is destroyed. Short-range might work, but there's no one out there to hear us." The crew gathered in what remained of the bridge, faces illuminated by emergency lighting as Thomas laid out their situation. The Asteria's quantum drive was beyond repair. Their emergency beacon was broadcasting, but the nearest human outpost was weeks away at best. And the planet's deteriorating condition meant they were sitting in the middle of an environmental catastrophe. "Our best bet is to find shelter in those structures we spotted from orbit," Thomas concluded. "They've survived whatever's happening to this planet so far. Maybe they can protect us too. If we can reach them," Marcus pointed out. "The nearest building complex is 15 kilometers away, through storms that make Earth's worst hurricanes look like a light breeze. We don't have a choice." Thomas began gathering essential equipment. "Pack whatever supplies you can carry. Medical gear, research instruments, survival gear. We move out in 30 minutes. As the crew prepared for their trek, Thomas found himself drawn to the ship's forward viewport. Through the cracked plexiglass, he could see the alien city rising in the distance, its crystalline towers glowing faintly through the perpetual storm. Something about those structures tugged at his scientific curiosity, despite their dire situation. An alert from his handheld scanner drew his attention. The quantum fluctuations they had been tracking were stronger here, emanating from somewhere beneath the surface. Whatever was causing the planet's destruction might be connected to the technology they had been studying. "Doc," Zara called, approaching with a packed survival kit. "The team's ready." Thomas nodded, shouldering his own pack. "Let's move out. Stay close, watch your radiation meters, and keep your eyes open. We're not just looking for shelter anymore." He glanced at his scanner readings again. "We might have stumbled onto something much bigger than we anticipated." The team stepped out into the alien storm, their environment suits already straining against the toxic winds. Above them, green lightning continued to tear across the crimson sky, while beneath their feet, the very ground seemed to pulse with hidden energy. Somewhere in the crystalline city ahead, answers awaited, if they could survive long enough to find them. Naira's empathic senses flared to life, pulling her from deep meditation. Something had changed in the rhythm of the ancient chamber's energy field, new presences, minds unlike any she had felt before. Through the crystalline pillars network, she could sense them moving through the ruins of her city, their thoughts colored by determination and fear. She accessed the palace's remaining security systems. The holographic displays showed 12 figures in environmental suits, making their way through the storm toward the central district. Their technology was unfamiliar, but clearly advanced enough for interstellar travel. "Visitors, now of all times," she whispered, watching their progress. Their arrival couldn't be coincidence, not when she had just discovered evidence that her planet's destruction might be artificially induced. On her screens, she saw one of the suited figures stop to examine a fallen data crystal, holding up some kind of scanning device. The scientific curiosity radiating from their mind was clear even at this distance. Not raiders or scavengers then, researchers. Naira made her decision. After 3 months alone, she had learned that survival meant taking calculated risks. These strangers might have knowledge or technology that could help her uncover the truth about what was happening to Calera. And if they proved hostile, well, she hadn't spent her isolation idle. In the main control chamber, she began activating ancient systems that even her people had never fully understood. The crystalline pillars hummed with increasing power as she extended her empathic abilities through them, creating a safe corridor through the storms. The strangers noticed the change immediately. Through the security feeds, she watched them huddle together, gesturing at their instruments. The one who had been scanning the data crystal, their leader, she presumed, pointed toward the palace's main entrance. They began moving with new purpose, following the path she had cleared. Naira prepared herself for the encounter, checking that her personal shield generator was functioning. She might be willing to take risks, but she wasn't foolish. When the palace's sensors indicated the visitors had reached the main hall, she took a deep breath and activated the entrance protocols. Ancient doors slid open with a whisper of crystalline technology. The humans jumped back, weapons appearing in some hands, scanning devices in others. Naira stepped into view, her silver eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Welcome to Calera," she said in her own language, while simultaneously projecting feelings of peaceful intention through her empathic abilities. "I am Princess Naira." The humans stared, clearly stunned by her appearance. Through her abilities, she could sense their mixture of surprise, fascination, and apprehension. One of them, a female with dark skin and eyes, stepped forward, holding up some kind of translation device. "I am Dr. Thomas Walker," the leader said, his words being converted into approximate Kelleran by the device. "We are researchers from Earth. Our ship crashed during an investigation of unusual quantum signatures in this sector." Naira nodded, switching to their language. "Your translation won't be necessary. I've already accessed your linguistic patterns through our connection." "Connection?" A wave of concern rippled through the group. "I am an empath," Naira explained. "My abilities allow me to sense thoughts and emotions, and to learn quickly from the minds I encounter. I assure you, I only took surface knowledge, enough to communicate." Dr. Walker lowered his translation device, fascination overtaking his caution. "Remarkable. But why are you here alone? Our scans suggested this city was recently inhabited." "It was," Naira confirmed, pain flickering through her at the memory. "My people evacuated 3 months ago when our planet began to die. I was left behind." The dark-eyed woman stepped forward. "I'm Zara Patel, chief engineer." "What do you mean, began to die?" "The readings we're getting suggest an artificial cause to your planet's condition." Naira's silver eyes widened. "You've detected it too?" "I've spent months gathering evidence, trying to prove that this destruction isn't natural. Please, come with me. There's something you need to see." She led them deeper into the palace, through corridors lined with pulsing crystalline technology. The humans' awe was palpable, their scientific minds racing to understand what they were seeing. In the ancient chamber she had discovered, Naira activated the holographic displays showing her research. "These energy patterns, Dr. Walker breathed, studying the data. "They're almost identical to what we were tracking. Someone or something is systematically destroying my world," Naira said. "The magnetic field disruption, the storms, the radiation, it's all being controlled. But I haven't been able to determine the source or the purpose. Our ship detected similar quantum signatures across several sectors," Zara added. "We thought they might be evidence of advanced communication technology, but this." She gestured at the displays, "This looks more like a weapon." A violent tremor shook the chamber, sending crystals crashing to the floor. The humans stumbled, but Naira remained steady, used to the increasingly frequent quakes. "Your ship," she said once the shaking subsided. "How badly is it damaged?" "Beyond repair," Dr. Walker admitted. "And our radiation shielding is failing. We have less than 2 days before exposure becomes lethal." Naira's mind raced through possibilities. The palace's shields are failing too, but these deeper chambers are naturally protected. There's room for all of you here, and supplies to share. Perhaps together we can solve this mystery before it's too late." The humans exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Dr. Walker turned back to Naira, his decision made. "We accept your offer, Princess. But I should warn you, in our experience, when something seems deliberately orchestrated on this scale, the truth behind it is often larger and more dangerous than anyone expected. Good, Naira said, a fierce light in her silver eyes. Because I'm tired of hiding in the dark with my questions. Whatever force is destroying my world, it's time we brought it into the light. As the humans began setting up their equipment, integrating it with the ancient systems, Naira felt something she hadn't experienced since her people abandoned her, hope. With these strangers' help, she might finally uncover the truth about what was happening to Calera. And perhaps, in working together, they would all find a way to survive what was coming. The ancient chamber hummed with combined human and Kelleran technology. Holographic displays filled the air, showing complex patterns of energy flowing through the planet's crust. Dr. Walker and Naira had worked through the night, combining their knowledge to understand the mysterious force tearing Calera apart. There's definitely a pattern here, Zara said, manipulating a 3D model of the energy flows. These quantum fluctuations aren't random. They're following some kind of predetermined sequence. Naira pressed her hand against one of the crystalline pillars, extending her empathic senses into the ancient network. The deeper I reach, the more I realize how little my people understood about this planet. These chambers, this technology, it's all connected to something vast beneath the surface. Marcus Riley, who had been analyzing geological data, suddenly straightened. Dr. Walker, you need to see this. I've been mapping the energy distribution across the planet's crust, and... He pulled up a new hologram, look at the pattern it forms. The team gathered around the display. The energy flows, when viewed as a complete system, created an intricate geometric pattern across the planet's surface. At regular intervals, points of intense activity pulsed with power. It's a circuit, Zara breathed. The entire planet is one massive machine. Naira's silver eyes widened as ancient memories, not her own, suddenly flooded her consciousness. Her empathic connection to the crystal network had deepened, revealing flashes of a civilization far older than her own. The architects, she whispered. That's what they called themselves. My people built our cities on their ruins, but we never knew. She staggered, overwhelmed by the rush of information. Dr. Walker caught her arm, steadying her. What did you see? He asked. Calera isn't just a planet, it's an ancient device, created by a species that existed millions of years ago. The crystalline structures, the quantum technology, it's all part of some vast mechanism. And now. She looked up, fear evident in her eyes, now it's being activated. A violent tremor shook the chamber, stronger than any before. Warning signals flashed across their displays as new energy signatures began appearing across the planet. The process is accelerating, Marcus reported, checking his instruments. Whatever this device was meant to do, it's reaching some kind of critical point. Dar. Walker began rapidly reviewing the data. These energy patterns, they're similar to theoretical models for spacetime manipulation. Could this entire planet be some kind of gateway? Naira finished. The architects built it to travel between dimensions. But something went wrong. The device was never meant to be activated in this state. Zara's hands flew over her controls. The quantum fluctuations are becoming unstable. If this really is some kind of dimensional gateway, an uncontrolled activation could tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. Not just here, Dr. Walker added grimly. The effect would cascade across this entire sector of space. Billions would die. Another tremor rocked the chamber, more violent than before. Crystal shards rained from the ceiling as ancient support structures groaned under the strain. There has to be a way to stop it, Naira insisted. She closed her eyes, pushing her empathic abilities to their limit as she searched the ancient network for answers. The others watched in amazement as the crystalline pillars began pulsing in sync with her consciousness. The control systems, she said suddenly. They're still active, but scattered across different nodes. If we could reach them. She pulled up a map showing 5 points arranged in a pentagonal pattern around the planet. The crash damaged our surface vehicles, Marcus pointed out. Even if we could reach these nodes, the storms outside are getting worse by the hour. We don't need to reach all of them, Naira said. The node beneath the palace is still accessible. If we can interface with it directly, I might be able to use my empathic abilities to connect with the others remotely. Dr. Walker studied the data. It's possible. The quantum entanglement between nodes means they're all connected at a fundamental level. But the power requirements would be enormous. We could adapt the Asteria's quantum drive, Zara suggested. It's damaged, but the core is intact. If we integrate it with the ancient systems here. It would kill you, Dr. Walker interrupted, looking at Naira. The neural load of connecting to that much quantum energy, no organic mind could survive it. Naira straightened, her silver eyes reflecting the pulsing lights of the chamber. My genetic mutation, the one my people feared? It wasn't a defect. It was an echo of the architect's own abilities. This is why I was left behind. This is what I was meant to do. Before anyone could stop her, Naira pressed both hands against the central crystal pillar. Energy surged through the chamber as her consciousness expanded through the ancient network. The human's instruments went wild as quantum fields twisted and realigned. Power readings off the scale. Zara shouted over the rising hum of energy. The gateway activation is reaching critical levels. Through her connection to the network, Naira could see everything, the vast mechanism of Calera, the dimensional forces building toward catastrophe, and the delicate quantum threads that bound it all together. With the last of her strength, she reached out to those threads, trying to bring them back into harmony. Dar. Walker watched in awe as streams of energy began flowing through Naira's body, her form becoming translucent as she merged with the ancient systems. The chamber filled with blinding light as reality itself seemed to bend around them. My God, Marcus whispered. She's actually doing it. The fate of not just Calera, but countless worlds across space and time, now rested in the hands of a princess her own people had deemed unworthy. As the ancient gateway surged toward its critical moment, only time would tell if Naira's sacrifice would be enough to prevent catastrophe. Time seemed to slow as quantum energy coursed through the ancient chamber. Naira's consciousness expanded across the vast network of Calera, her physical form now little more than a luminescent silhouette against the blinding light. Through her expanded awareness, she could sense the intricate quantum threads that formed the planet's dimensional gateway, each one humming with power that threatened to tear reality apart. Dar. Walker and his team worked frantically at their instruments, trying to stabilize the surging energy fields. The quantum cascade is approaching critical mass, Zara shouted over the deafening hum of power. If we can't contain it. Naira, Dr. Walker called out, you have to pull back. The neural load is too much. But Naira could barely hear them now. Her mind had expanded beyond the physical realm, touching the very fabric of space-time itself. Through her enhanced perception, she finally understood the true purpose of her genetic mutation. She wasn't defective, she was evolved. Her people had been unconsciously developing the abilities needed to interface with the architect's technology, and she represented the first success. In this expanded state, Naira could see the truth about the gateway's activation. It wasn't random or malicious, it was a failsafe, triggered by changes in the local space-time continuum. The architects had built Calera as part of a vast network of dimensional anchors, designed to prevent the collapse of multiple realities. But after millions of years, the system was breaking down. The network, Naira's voice echoed strangely, seeming to come from everywhere at once. It's not just Calera. There are others, dozens of gateway worlds, all connected. The system is trying to realign, but the patterns are corrupted. Through their instruments, the humans watched in awe as Naira's consciousness reached out to the other nodes scattered across the planet. Energy began flowing in new patterns, the chaotic quantum fluctuations gradually shifting into more orderly configurations. She's actually doing it, Marcus breathed, checking his readings. The gateway's power signature is stabilizing. But the strain on Naira was immense. Her physical form flickered like a candle in the wind as she struggled to maintain control over the vast energies flowing through her. The patterns, she gasped. They're too complex. I can't hold them all. The Asteria's quantum drive, Zara suddenly exclaimed. We could use it to help process the patterns, take some of the load off her neural network. Dr. Walker nodded quickly. Do it. Quick. While Zara rushed to integrate their ship's quantum technology with the ancient systems, Dr. Walker approached Naira's glowing form. Hold on, he urged. Just a little longer. You're not alone in this. Through her expanded awareness, Naira felt the familiar quantum signature of the Earth ship's technology connecting to the network. It wasn't nearly as sophisticated as the architect's systems, but it provided just enough additional processing power to help her mind make sense of the complex dimensional patterns. With this support, Naira began the delicate process of rewriting the gateway's protocols. Instead of trying to force the failing network back into its original configuration, she began adapting it, creating new patterns that could accommodate the changes in spacetime that had occurred over millions of years. The chamber filled with swirling colors as reality itself seemed to bend and flex around them. The humans' instruments showed dimensional barriers thinning, allowing glimpses of other worlds connected to the network, some eerily similar to Calera, others completely alien. Look! Marcus pointed to their displays. The quantum fluctuations, they're synchronizing across all the nodes. The whole network is realigning itself. Naira felt the change rippling through the system. The gateway wasn't shutting down, it was evolving, adapting to serve a new purpose. As the energy fields stabilized, she began to withdraw her consciousness back into her physical form, carefully maintaining the new patterns she had established. The blinding light gradually faded. Naira's body solidified, though now her silver eyes held hints of swirling energy, and her blue skin seemed to shimmer with an inner light. She stumbled, weakened by the immense effort, and Dr. Walker caught her before she could fall. Did it work? She asked weakly. Zara checked their instruments. The quantum cascade has been halted. The gateway network is stable, operating under new protocols. You did it, Naira. You saved not just Calera, but potentially countless other worlds. But the planet, Naira looked around at the crystalline chamber. It's still not safe for habitation. The radiation. Actually, Marcus interrupted, studying his readings, the new gateway configuration is having an interesting side effect. It's generating a persistent quantum field that's naturally stabilizing the planet's magnetic field. The storm should begin to dissipate within days. Dr. Walker helped Naira to a seat, smiling. It seems you didn't just save your world, you healed it. Not just my world, Naira said softly. The network. I can still feel it. All those other gateway worlds out there, waiting to be discovered. The architects didn't build this system just to maintain dimensional stability. They built it to connect civilizations, to allow different species to learn from each other and grow together. She turned to Dr. Walker and his team. Your arrival here wasn't an accident. The gateway was calling out, drawing those who could help restore its true purpose. And now. She smiled, her silver eyes bright with possibility. Now we have a chance to do what the architects intended. To explore, to connect, to build bridges between worlds. Dr. Walker nodded, understanding the magnitude of what they had discovered. Earth's scientific community will want to study this technology, to understand these gateways. We could establish a research base here, with your permission of course. More than that, Naira said. My people will return when they learn the planet is healing. But things will be different now. They'll find a world not just saved, but transformed. And perhaps. She looked at each of the humans in turn, perhaps they'll also find that the future lies not in genetic purity, but in connection, in the bridging of differences. As if in response to her words, the crystalline pillars pulsed with soft light, the ancient technology harmonizing with its new protocols. Outside, the eternal storms began to calm for the first time in years, revealing glimpses of stars shining in a clearing sky. On Calera, a new chapter was beginning. The abandoned princess had become a bridge between worlds, the dying planet transformed into a gateway of possibility, and two species had found in each other the key to unlocking mysteries greater than either could have imagined alone. As Naira and her human allies looked out at their transformed world, they knew this was not an ending, but a beginning. Somewhere out there, through the quantum gateways they had helped restore, new adventures and discoveries awaited. The true journey was just beginning.